Good morning on this Sunday, July 26th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. It's a week of mourning two civil rights icons after the deaths of Congressman John Lewis and Dr. C.T. Vivian. Georgia Democrats announced Nikema Williams will be on the November ballot in the 5th Congressional District, but some are questioning the process. And as coronavirus cases continue to rise, it's a political and legal war over the wearing of masks. Farron, Phil, Janelle, and Kathy are all here joining us from their homes. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
It's been a difficult week in Atlanta and across the nation as we say goodbye to two titans of the civil rights movement, both Dr. C.T. Vivian and Congressman John Lewis. And Theron, I know you weren't on last week and you were very close to Congressman Lewis. I'd really like to just begin with you, how you were reflecting on his life and legacy.
Yeah, Lori, you said it best. I mean, we lost two titans, two giants. This one really hurts me deeply because of my close relationship with Congressman John Lewis. I'm like many people, I'm crushed. But I would tell you that, you know, if we want to honor the life and legacy of Congressman John Lewis, he would want all of us to pull together and try to get through this and make sure that we celebrate his long life of fighting for civil rights and equal rights for all of us. But I would just tell you that this one hurts me deeply, and I just reflect on the many conversations that we've had. And then we've also got to give a great deal of respect to Dr. C.T. Vivian. Last time I had a chance to speak with Dr. Vivian was when we both were getting an award together, and each awardee, when we gave our thank you remarks, we all talked about the sacrifices, the beatings that Dr. C.T. Vivian took so that we didn't have to take those beatings. But more importantly, we talked about him being a scholar and a man who loved to read and loved his family. And so I don't know how I'm going to get through this. This one is definitely tough for me and a lot of other people, but I would just pray and hope that we definitely do everything we possibly can to honor the life of these two men.
So true and so well said there. And Phil, you know, you've been covering Georgia politics for decades. Both men made such a mark on this state and really this nation. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, that's well said, too. They did make quite a mark. The 1960s were a turbulent time, of course, in American history, and these were two apostles of nonviolence during the civil rights movement. I think it's instructive to reflect on the philosophy of these two men, too, because they felt, rightly so, that if they demonstrated nonviolently for voting rights and civil rights, that they would earn the support of the large masses, and that was absolutely correct. And you contrast that now, sad to say, with the hard left that hijacks a lot of these peaceful demonstrations and then turns to rioting and looting. And that's not the way to go. That's not what John Lewis preached, or C.T. Vivian, or Martin Luther King. And I think that's a lesson now for those that do want to peacefully demonstrate, which that's our right. But they should speak out when the hijacking occurs by radicals.
Janelle, let's talk about this a little bit. C.T. Vivian, I mean, I just think there's so much to say about him as well. He was always one of my favorite interviews. He just had this incredible personality and could just light up a room. What should young people like yourself take from the legacies of these two men?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. I think it's really, really important that we understand the importance of our past leaders. You know, we may not have always shared the same political beliefs, but one of the things I do remember is when I met with him, he and I talked, and he told me to keep up the good work. And he always talked about how it's important to have a balanced discussion and making sure that we understand that. But, you know, something that's really interesting with young people is that we cannot act like we are so new and we understand things from a different perspective today that we forget what our ancestors have done and what the past has afforded to us. So I think it's time to make sure we reflect that we have the freedoms that we have today because of what happened years ago.
Kathy, I'll turn to you.
Thanks. You know, I got to know both of these men kind of at separate times when I worked in Washington quite some time ago, and C.T. Vivian was a real example to me as I worked with other people on trying to pass a federal hate crimes bill 30 years ago, and then we finally have one in Georgia. And just, watching him work and the way he could bring people together was really something that stood out as an example for me. And similarly with Mr. Lewis, I had the great opportunity to, kind of lobby him, although it was fairly light work in terms of the work I was doing, because he was always there. And I think the way to really characterize both of these men is they had just a very clear moral compass about what they were doing, which enabled them to apply that to lots of different circumstances. And I think it boded well for them and for us, and I think people who are in leadership positions, not just political, should reflect on that and see if they can adopt some of those characteristics too.
That's a good point, the moral compass, and it led them to accomplish so much. So I do want to turn to the political angle now. The state party announced that Nikema Williams will replace Congressman Lewis on the November ballot. Theron, I know before she was even named, so it's really not personal, you said the person should resign once they take office so that voters in the 5th district can have a say. This is a little controversial among Democrats.
Well, Congressman Lewis was not only my former boss, but he was my friend and he was my mentor. I spent a lot of time with him in the final weeks of his life. And one of the things he always said, Lori, is that if you see something that's not right, that's not fair, that's not just, you should say something. You should speak up. You should speak out. You should get in the way. And that's what I did. I wanted to speak out and say, we need to make sure that we honor the life and legacy of Congressman John Lewis appropriately. And I just truly felt that he would have wanted the voters of the 5th Congressional District, in which I live and many of us live, to have an opportunity to not only pick their Democratic nominee, but also pick their U.S. representative.
Kathy, as a fellow Democrat with Theron, do you agree with his take?
Well, that could clearly be ideal, but that's not the way the law states it, and the risk for Democrats would have been, by ignoring that and trying to kind of fuss about it, would have been that the governor could have appointed someone in that role, or perhaps, I guess they would have had to. The law really doesn't allow for that supposition, but Democrats needed to do something. I think they did as open a process as they could. They came up with an incredible candidate, and they did it quickly and with a minimal amount of angst and deterioration, for lack of a better word. So I think we got the best of both worlds. I think Democrats and Republicans should look at this law and decide how they want to proceed in future instances. But under the circumstances, I think Nikema Williams is a great candidate to be on the ballot. And I think if people don't know her, they'll come to know her and appreciate her strengths.
Janelle, this is an issue that Republicans and Democrats deal with, and as Kathy mentioned, maybe it's time to focus on the law here, maybe changing the law. What do you think?
Okay, so I definitely stand with Theron on this one. I think that this process is a great example of the hypocrisy that comes out of the left, and I have to mention Stacey Abrams on this one, because she sat on the board of the nominating committee, and she went on a whole tour of how she was supposed to be the governor, because Governor Kemp did not resign as SOS when he ran as governor. And so now to have a nominating committee who put together, I know Kathy said this was a transparent process, but having a quote-unquote public session that only holds 500 people, because I tried to get in and I was told that I couldn't, is not a transparent experience. To not have a representation from Clayton County on the nominating board is not a transparent experience either. And I think that at the end of the day, this to me is a clear example of voter suppression. We did not allow the district, the congressional district, to decide who's supposed to be there, and to say and convince people that they only had 24 hours to decide is not true. There were other options. And what I don't understand is that he passed away on a Friday. Over the weekend, why didn't they poll the community and say, hey, here are our options. We can either put someone in there with the 24-hour mark, or we can have a request that the governor put forth a special election and then explain both sides of what the pros and cons are, and that's still allowing the district to have a voice and have a decision. The problem is not the candidate as much as it is the process. If they went through it correctly and it ended up with Nekima, then that's fine. But you got to be aware of this process. You cannot suppress the voting. You cannot allow people to feel like they are just being told who's going to represent them.
Phil,
good thing we have Angela in the race right now, because I certainly look forward to seeing what happens with this.
Phil, give me your take on this in about 20 seconds because we're out of time.
Well, I think Janelle framed that quite properly. There should have been a better open process, and there was suppression. I mean, let's look at it. The bottom line is that the head of the nominating committee, Nekima Williams, had it packed with her supporters, and her supporters picked Nekima Williams as the nominee of the Democratic Party. It's very undemocratic. Reminded me of the old Communist Party of the Soviet Union. You just pick somebody, and that's that, and the people don't have a say.
All right, thanks, guys. That's we'll have a lot more discussion on the issue. Coming up, a showdown over masks between Governor Kemp and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
A surprising turn of events as Governor Kemp files suit against the city of Atlanta for trying to put in tighter restrictions during the pandemic. Phil, I'm going to start with you because I want to ask you, were you surprised that Governor Kemp picked this fight, which centered on mandated masks? I mean, do you think he should have filed suit?
I do believe that he should have filed suit because he was trying to support the primacy of the governor as the chief executive of the state to enforce his mandates and executive orders. Now, it is going to mediation, and I think mediation is always a good thing when you have a court suit. It can save a lot of time and money. And so basically what might happen, that would be a good result, would be if both sides agreed of the primacy of the governor, but there were some exceptions for local areas where maybe there's a hot spot of the coronavirus where you may have to have some exceptions. So that would be the greatest outcome from this mediation. The relationship between Mayor Bottoms and Governor Kemp had deteriorated, so I wasn't really that surprised. But this needs to be fixed, and I think they're communicating again, and let's hope for the best.
This does need to be resolved. And Theron, why do you think Governor Kemp targeted the city of Atlanta when other cities also mandated masks and had some tighter restrictions?
I think that's really a question that the governor will continue to have to answer. I think that what he said is that the lawsuit was not just against the mask mandate. I think it was also referencing the rollback into phase one, which Mayor Bottoms decided to roll back in the city of Atlanta, which I did support. I do think that if you look at a time where we've had our second highest percentage of death rates, the numbers were getting out of control. She definitely had to make that decision. But as Phil just mentioned, the good news is this. At the end of the day, those two leaders are coming together. They're in mediation. They're talking. Their attorneys are talking. And I think the citizens of Atlanta, they want to wear masks. And I think people understand that wearing a mask, while it may be uncomfortable, it's the right thing to do to flatten this curve and to prevent people from catching the coronavirus. But ultimately, I think we need to take this out of the press, let it legally be, come up with a solution, and let's just move on.
Kathy, I want to talk schools now because many districts announced that they'll be starting virtually, yet the CDC director said it's important for public health to open schools, and pointing out that kids really don't suffer that much from the virus and they're less likely to spread it and suffer from being out of school. So this is a tough decision for administrators. Nobody is 100% happy. So what do you think about all of this?
Well, honestly, I can't wait for the election to come and hopefully some changes to be made at the top, because the conflicting messages we get from Dr. Burke, who's advising the president yesterday, calling 11 cities and telling them they need to get things under control fast, to the CDC then coming out with their information, which has changed over time and been sublimated in many cases, just sends the wrong message to people. And I think schools are doing the best they can do, trying to figure out, the last thing you want to do is you make arrangements to open up, and then you have to close the next week because you've had infections, and then you've got to start all over again, and that's not good for kids either. I do think that in the federal government and the state government has made some mistakes that I've talked about in terms of funding for schools, because it's just going to take more money to get this done right and to support kids and families. And I think we should all be as creative and innovative as we can to figure out how we can, provide new ways for kids to learn and families to get supported as they try to work, homeschool, get their kids to school safely, all of the things that people are concerned about right now.
Janelle, there are some parents petitioning for in-person school at the start of the year, but many teachers say their job is to educate kids and it's not to risk their lives on the front lines. What do you think?
So I think we have to listen to the parents as well. I mean, first of all, daycares are open, so apparently, they find it okay for our little ones to be in school. And then when you look at it, I honestly think that we are really politicizing this way too much. At the end of the day, there's only been, if I'm not mistaken, about 14 deaths from children as it relates to COVID-19, and there's been 0 contract tracing that led back to children actually spreading the disease to their teachers. So I think with the proper adjustments in place, this can be done. And we need to hear our parents. I mean, at the end of the day, I know the president recently rolled out a plan where it's either to provide funding for PPE and other things, or to give funding directly to parents so they can have a choice whether to put their kids in private school or not. So I do see the president is working on this and taking care of it from both perspectives.
All right, good discussion, everyone. Well, coming up, Atlanta makes national headlines for a surge in violent crime. We'll get it right. We'll discuss right after this.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The headline in the Wall Street Journal this week: violent crime surges in Atlanta and amid rising unemployment. Kathy, the city of Atlanta really is not the only city experiencing the uptick in crime, but the numbers are staggering. More than 100 people shot. Morale at the Atlanta Police Department is at an all-time low. You were city council president. You ran for mayor. What would you do to get a handle on this situation?
Well, what needed to have been done needed to happen a lot before now, right? Finding ways to bridge the conversation about how we change police tactics and what we do in terms of police reform while still supporting the police officers that we do have who come to work every day and do the job that they're supposed to do. So we can't walk that back right now. But I think going forward, we have to be really concerned in general in this country is that people are reaching a desperation point, and that sometimes that doesn't lead to the best outcomes. And so we've got to figure out ways to bring the country together, bring people together, and find ways to support people who are struggling financially, who are struggling emotionally. It's a difficult time. We call it the new normal. There's nothing normal about it. It's only new. So I don't know that I have any extreme words of wisdom, but I do think there needs to be a tremendous amount of focus. And I do think that the city and the police department are working hard to prevent collective gatherings that tend to lead to bad outcomes for our communities. And I think that that's going to be very helpful in the long run.
Phil, I want to talk to you, and then we'll go to Theron about a specific issue that's really been brewing across the city. It's the boys and the young adults who are selling water on the street corners that are seen in several videos aggressively going after drivers who refuse to buy any. And City Council President Felicia Moore said this week, enough is enough. Someone's going to get hurt, which has already happened. Weigh in here on this issue.
Well, it never should have happened in the first place. You can't have young people swarming into major intersections of a city and then harassing, in some cases jumping on cars, banging on windows, pulling a weapon and trying to extort money from motorists who are terrified And it goes to the whole point of Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms' permissiveness. The police were told to stand down and don't do anything about these young people that were engaging in criminal acts. I'm glad Felicia Moore and some others finally are speaking out, but it goes to the whole general point of the mayor is just a permissive mayor, and the police don't know what to do. The police academy isn't sure how they should train when it comes to arrests, when it comes to shootings, and yeah, that's a terrible national headline. All of the panelists here on the gang have been promoting Atlanta and marketing it as a great place to locate and to have a business, and all this is being undermined when you don't have due process, for example, for police officers who are involved in shootings, and when morale is so low with the police.
Theron, let's get your take here. Phil calls her a permissive mayor. You talk to Mayor Bottoms quite often, and some of her critics say that she's too busy, right, campaigning to be Joe Biden's pick for VP, doing so many national interviews, and that she's not focused on the crime issue in her own city. Is that fair?
That's like three different things you threw at me there, Lori. Let's just try to tackle all of them. Number one, no, she is not actively running to be vice president of the United States of America. She's doing her job as mayor. If you notice, you've seen other people campaigning for the job. That's not what Mayor Bottoms has done. Matter of fact, she's been the one that's been outspoken, saying, "Hey, all questions around my vetting and my selection process, you have to do those to the Biden campaign." Around public safety, listen, she's taking it very seriously. She understands that crime in Atlanta is a top priority for her, and everyone needs to work together to deal with it. And then lastly, I don't want to call them bottle boys because I think that's not the right way to refer to them, is that you did have some young African-American boys out selling water, which, was not illegal to do. But when it does turn violent, when it does turn to the point where they are harassing motorists and throwing bottles at cars, and we've seen some of the videos, then I think we got to make sure we deal with that. We do it in a way of compassion with humanity, but we do need to put an end to the people who are basically trying to bring destruction to people as they just ride down the street.
Janelle, I want your take on this.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. I think that at this point, I guess I can understand why they were trying to give these young people something to do and give them a chance. But at the same time, whenever you allow people to sell on the street corners without permitting or having to go through the permitting process, you're really not teaching them how things really work anyway. So I do think that it was a chance, an opportunity that was definitely squandered by the young people. But at the same time, this is becoming ridiculous, and when you have officers that are feeling comfortable telling people that the best thing I can tell you to do is to put your gun on the console, that's how you know that we're really in a time of lawlessness and we have to bring it back. This is where law and order comes into play and why it's so important.
All right, well, I wanted to get to the U.S. Senate races, but we're out of time, so we'll discuss those next week, because coming up, we'll have winners and losers. Everyone, stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
I would love to go first because I want to make baby Tyson Lynn Johnson the winner, because he is going to grow up with some amazing parents. So congratulations to Theron and his wife China for a beautiful baby boy that we will post pictures of on Facebook, and we'll probably have them next week as well. So Theron, we'll start with you. Happy fatherhood.
All right, thank you so much, Lori, and thank you to all the gang. You guys have been wonderful, wishing me well with my new journey towards fatherhood. As mentioned before, Congressman John Lewis and Dr. Reverend C.T. Vivian are definitely winners. I also want to make a winner this week, Paul Williams Sr. He was a well-respected business owner here in Atlanta, a person who was well-respected with many business owners and mentored a lot of them. He passed away this week, so I want to offer my condolences. And also Clemmy Barnes Hatchett, who is the mother of Judge Glenda Hatchett, passed away this week. And then lastly, my last winner is going to be DeKalb County. They introduced a mask mandate this week, which is sort of a middle ground that received a lot of bipartisan support and support for businesses. And so Commissioner Marita Johnson worked with the DeKalb County CEO Michael Thurman to get this mandate passed.
All right, over to Phil.
Well, I've got a winner. It's a new Brigadier General in the U.S. Army National Guard. It's Bobby Christine. He actually wears another hat, too. He is the U.S. Attorney over in the Augusta to Savannah district. And it's quite an honor because there was only one slot nationally for this promotion, and it went to Bobby Christine, so hats off to him. And I've got the Braves are a winner. You know, they're starting their 60-game season, and, you know, all of us on the gang could actually participate and be there, but we could send in our headshot pictures, and they'll put them on cutouts if you send them some money. So let's try to do that. Maybe we could all sit together.
Just what you want, a big head of Theron Johnson, right? All right, and let's go over to Janelle quickly. We have about a minute left.
Okay, really quick. My winner is Governor Kemp. He recently signed a bill which penalizes anyone who knowingly drives a motor vehicle to commit human trafficking crimes, and with a lifetime ban on operating commercial vehicles. So that's my winner for this week. I'll save my loser for next week.
All right, Kathy, over to you. I think we should all get big heads and put them together.
The Georgia Municipal Association is my winner this week for opposing Governor Kemp's lawsuit against the city of Atlanta because of the intrusion on home rule and local control. They've done a great job. Also, shout out to the city of Savannah. Last night, they joined the raft of cities passing a comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance. They've been working on it for a while, and appreciate their work on that.
All right, thanks, gang, and thank you to everybody for tuning in this week. We appreciate it. Once again, congratulations to Theron on fatherhood, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.